Why do we start our videos like this? I don't know. I just kind of started doing it. It's kind of funny. I mean, they already have this preloaded video clip in here, so I mean, why not use it, right? So we're talking about NFL Week 3. Be sure to join us through the questions. We got some news to go over too. Let's get into it. And y'all know we're back with another episode of the one and only Allied Rivals podcast. Oh, it's good to be back. Hopefully more frequent than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing all right. My name is AJ Herschel, the kid, and I'm joined with my partner, Cademan Bauer. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, you know. I mean, everything's going pretty well. Nothing bad. So
That's
just
good.
Mediocre. Yeah, how are you?
Perfectly mediocre. I mean, it's good. I'm having a good day today, actually. Over the weekend, spent a couple hours playing badminton, so my right arm is not entirely happy with me, but
You there?
just chilling, getting work, all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
should be. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. But
Cool.
we got a fun episode today, though. We're talking about the NFL
Indeed.
Week 3. And before we do, there is a decent amount of news to cover. But before we even get to that, we do, first of all, want to remind everybody watching that we have Allied Rivals shorts out now. We've got 2 of them. We're hopefully going to publish even more very, very soon. They're just 5-minute videos on different stuff. We've got another one coming up very, very soon. So we will go ahead and we'll let y'all know when we upload that. But before we even go into anything, Cademan, your Brewers did it. They're in. They made it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
How'd you feel when you found out?
Yeah. I was like, I was watching the Brewers score and everything, and I was like, oh, they lost. We're not in the playoffs. Because the Giants game was still going, and I thought they were in because it ranked them above the Brewers. And then the Giants lost, and I was like, oh, the Brewers are in the playoffs.
Yep.
So I was just really happy about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. Unfortunately, y'all get the Dodgers. Unfortunately,
I don't think it's going to last. Yelich would have to go off crazy.
Yeah.
To do anything against the Dodgers.
Yeah. And
but
then
I'm
you
still
still have
made
to
it.
stop them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know what's crazy?
That's always good. That's always good.
4 teams from the NL Central made it.
I know, right? I mean, poor Pittsburgh Pirates, but we all expected that. But that's crazy.
Yeah.
We almost got it. We got a full sweep all the wild card spots.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
Love it.
Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get into the news. We're going to try to go through this kind of fast because there is a decent amount of it. First of all, the Titans tested positive for COVID reportedly. So now their next game's up in the air. They're still scheduled to do it, but they're not allowed to enter any of the team facilities or anything until Saturday. Vikings are also quarantining. That game is up in the air. For all of you NHL fans, the Tampa Bay Lightning are your Stanley Cup champions, which, to be honest, we kind of all saw that coming. Dallas, some very mediocre defense in the final game. Couldn't keep up with Tampa's offense. Tampa wins the series 4-1. Boston fans, I'm very sorry. You had a great regular season. The Los Angeles Angels fired their general manager, Billy Epler, who never made the playoffs in his 6 years as manager. No surprise there. Talking about firings, Doc Rivers is officially fired by the Los Angeles Clippers, despite the fact that they got bounced by the Nuggets. You know, I mean, why else would he get knocked out? Very disappointing season for Clippers fans. Even more disappointing now.
AJ, is it me glitching or is it you glitching?
Nope, that was me. I just reloaded. Sorry. What was the last thing you heard?
Something about the Lakers.
Okay, yeah. Clippers out, Lakers in. That's the short of it. Tariq Cohen tears his ACL, and that's really annoying for me. The Cleveland Browns have something to celebrate. This is the first time, Cademan, they've had a winning record since 2014.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. That's almost demeaning, and I'm very sorry to Cleveland fans.
Well done by Kevin Stefanski.
There you go.
Good for him.
In the WNBA, for the three of you who watch our podcast, if any of you are interested, we already know the Seattle Storm cruised past Minnesota to make it into the finals. But believe it or not, the first seed Las Vegas Aces went down 2-1, but they brought it back. They're playing Game 5 tonight. Winner between the 7 seed Connecticut Sun, mind you, gets to go play the Seattle Storm, where they will probably get obliterated. Also, tomorrow, first game of the NBA Finals, the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. Who would have seen it coming? Going on to take on LeBron and AD and the LA Lakers. Cademan, what are you expecting from game 1?
I'm expecting maybe the Lakers kind of sit back and figure out how the Heat's offense works. That'd be interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
They could just totally take down Jimmy Butler and Bam and win the game. That'd be cool too. I mean, I'd rather see the Heat win. But it's just preference.
Yeah. Not much other news other than that. In college football, your top floor Oklahoma fell to Kansas State, giving up a big lead, trying to play their best Atlanta Falcons impression. Sorry, that was low. They lose to Kansas State. And ladies and gentlemen, this is why the Big 12 is the Big 12. I'm sorry. Other than that, LSU also falls to 20. They dropped 14 spots after losing to Mississippi State. In other news, Joe Montana stinking saved his granddaughter from a kidnapper. His wife. So, I mean, major respect to him. This dude is like an absolute unit. Oh my goodness. Totally respect him. Panda Pablo Sandoval is going to be joining the Braves, which I just think is interesting. And Ron Roinke will not be the manager of Boston next year for the Red Sox. And that, Cademan, is all of the news, the most recent news around the sports world. Anything you want to say before we get into the potatoes of this episode?
I think I'm ready to get into the meat and potatoes.
All right, let's do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was a interesting week 3, to say the least. Close games that we didn't expect. Minshew fell back down to earth, and Steven Gostkowski scored 25 fantasy points. So, I mean, nobody could have seen any of this coming. But we're going to go ahead and get into the different games. And I know I want to talk about my Bears, but let's talk about your Packers first, man. Packers.
We're going to the Packers.
Quarter. It was a tight game, but Aaron Rodgers' big game helps overcome the Alvin Kamara-led Saints. 37-30. What did you think of Rodgers, Lazard, Jones?
So, I mean, Devontae Adams was out. So that's like a big loss. But Alan Lazard stepped up and played out of his mind. He had 146 of Aaron Rodgers' 283 passing yards. And that was in 6 receptions. Alan Lazard got that 146. That was nice. He had a nice long of 72 yards. So, I don't know. He's good with the ball, running with the ball. Aaron Jones, it was a little bit of a slower game, I noticed, for him. He only had 70 rushing yards, that is. And I think the whole rushing game for the Packers wasn't as productive against the Saints defense. But, I mean, it wasn't bad because you still had Aaron Jones doing stuff like receiving. You still had other running backs getting receiving yards. So it wasn't bad. And I mean, when you have Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan, and Mercedes Lewis all getting touchdowns thrown from Aaron Rodgers, that's good. And when Aaron Jones gets a rushing touchdown, that's great. So, I mean, even though the offense struggled at times and the defense was a little bit struggling, it was still a good game for Green Bay. So, yeah. I mean, the one thing I will say, though, is the Green Bay defense struggled so much against Alvin Kamara. He broke so many tackles. It was crazy.
But
got
then
any,
again, I mean, everyone has
things-
trouble with Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, he is one of, if not the best running back in the league, probably.
Mhm. Yeah.
Especially
now,
you have McCaffrey and Saquon out.
True,
Yeah.
true. Talking about Packers wide receiving core, Lazard absolutely stepped up. Aaron Rodgers, of course, as usual, spreads the ball around the field. MVS has kind of become a non-factor. I've never been the biggest fan of him. I liked Lazard over him coming into the season. Do you think this is the end of MVS with the Packers as being a major factor? He's kind of been their deep threat for a long time, but only one catch for 5 yards against the Saints. What do you think?
It was, I mean, I was kind of sad since I have him on a couple of my fantasy teams and I put him in.
But, I see you're trying to trade me. You're trying to get Lazard from me.
I was. But I mean, not from the game standpoint, I think when you have Devontae Adams in and he's being most of the time double teamed, unless it's like he's playing against someone like Richard Sherman, then that opens up Allen Lazard. And when he starts getting the big yards, then MVS does. And so I think Devontae opens up the game for Lazard, and then Lazard does the same for MVS. So I think when you had Lazard as your number one wide receiver, MVS was not as open. That's just my thoughts right there.
Interesting. So when it comes to Devontae Adams, we know he's going to be back. He's not out for a long time.
Yep.
It's just his typical banged up for a couple weeks. There's a high chance he plays in week 4 at this point. So what do you think when he comes back? Is Lazard going to be a main factor? Is the tight end Sternberger, Mercedes Lewis, are they going to be in? How do you think his role will change the rest of the offense?
I mean, I think at this point they really want to get the running game going because, like we all know, when the running game is going great, it opens up the receiving game. And so open up Aaron Jones, and you probably have opened up Devontae and then Lazard and then MVS, and it just kind of becomes a chain. One thing follows after another. And I mean, of course, they're going to stutter it sometimes. They're going to have to punt it once in a while, but I think when you have Devontae, like, it's so complete. When you have one of the best backs in the league and then one of the best wide receivers in the league, one of the best number 2s in the league, looks good. I mean, that's arguable, but he's playing like that. He's playing like that.
For sure, to be fair, yeah. Now, so here's the interesting – we argued so much before the season started about whether this was going to be Rodgers' team or Jones' team. We're kind of both right. Game 1, all Rodgers. Game 2, all Jones. Game 3, team effort. This team's a very, very complete team. Like, excluding the defense, the offense is one of the most well-oiled teams in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, when they played the Vikings and they were up by a ton, they put in the backups. Because the corners, they didn't want them to get injured, and they were playing so well out of their mind. Jair Alexander and Kevin King is one of the best combinations you can ask for. In game 2 against the Lions, for some reason the Packers always struggle some against the Lions, but I think they took this one pretty well. And then, I mean, the Saints offense, Alvin Kamara just kind of tears it up. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I think the defense is definitely better than everyone else says it is.
Yeah, I think so. If you don't mind, I think I'm going to talk about the Saints for a little bit. I think we got the Packers just here. So when it comes to the Saints, that's a tough break if you're New Orleans. Packers, it really came down to the final few possessions, and I'm not sure how I feel about Drew Brees at this point. I mean, he says he's feeling better. He's throwing fine, but I think his age is really starting to show, whether we like to admit that or not. Granted, he did throw for almost 30 passes and 288 yards. He and Aaron Rodgers were like this purely in terms of stats for the entire game. But then you look at his receivers and you realize Kamara caught 13 of those passes. Look, Packers defense aside, that's good. But if you check down to anyone that much, I don't know if it's because Thomas is out, if it's because the Packers D was doing so well, or if Breeze is not throwing the ball down the field. I don't know why, but Kamara right now is the only reason the Saints are really, I think, as good as they are. He's carrying them when it comes to the running game, and he's literally the main factor in the pass game. The Saints worry me a little bit, at least till Thomas comes back, because look, Breeze is good, but this is starting to look more and more like the Panthers, a better version of the Panthers with McCaffrey without Thomas. What do you think?
I think that, I mean, it's hard to know, because I think when you have Michael Thomas coming back, it's like it's so complete again, because when Alvin Kamara's running out of his mind, and then you get Michael Thomas open, and then you get Tre'Quan Smith open, and so on and so on. And Emmanuel Sanders. I think Michael Thomas is like just as important as Alvin Kamara. He may not always have as many yards.
Oh, for sure.
But he is just such a key factor in the offense, and he is what is part of what will make, hopefully, Drew Brees' stats look good, because he's getting open all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to know, because like with that game, you had Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas out, so you had both your number ones out. So I think once you add them both, I think they're pretty equal in terms of how good they are. So I think you still have the Packers better than the Saints. And also, I mean, coming off of a loss to the Raiders is going to be hard for anyone. So I don't know. I think it was a hard game for the Saints, but
yeah. Well, fortunately, if you're a Saints fan, you get the Lions next week. And if you're a Packers fan, you get the Falcons next week. So
lovely.
They both get a good rest matchup. And speaking of Atlanta, let's go ahead and talk about the Bears and the Falcons. That was a game that happened.
That was a big game.
Wow. Do you want to talk about this first or what?
Why don't you take it away? Take it away with the Bears.
All right. Yeah. So I still don't know how to feel about the Bears. I'm going to be entirely honest with all you guys. We have played 3 games, and I'm not sure if we deserve to win any of them. You look at the game with the Lions, first of all, right? DeAndre Swift drops a touchdown pass, but also the Lions D just collapsed. Game 2, Saquon goes out, giant stall, and yet we still only win by a touchdown. Falcons game, we have put Nick Foles in to play for an entire quarter. And to be fair, Nick Foles looked crazy good. 3 touchdowns, over 150 yards, and some of those passes were pretty. Hits a nice comeback route to Allen Robinson for a touchdown while getting hit. Pretty pass to Anthony Miller over the top. And the Falcons did what the Falcons did. They're now the only team to blow 15-point fourth quarter leads in back-to-back games ever. And as a Bears fan, I'm like, so are we good or not?
Yeah.
There's only 7 undefeated teams left. The Packers, okay. Titans, Steelers, okay. Chiefs, Bills, Seahawks, and then there's us.
There's the Bears.
I don't know how to feel about it. And we get the Colts this week. And this was what I've said a couple times to some of my friends. Our schedule is primed for a 10-6 run this year. Like the Bears got a very, very generous schedule compared to teams like the Texans. Like even in the coming weeks, we get some tougher games, Bucks, Rams, Saints, but we've always had the Vikings number. We get to play them twice. Jaguars, Texans offensive line is terrible. We get the Panthers. It's like we can scratch out a couple of these games and get to a good season. So I'm interested to see Foles for an entire game.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Foles was obviously playing out of his mind, and I'm wondering, are they going to start him next week?
They are.
I think they are. They announced that. Okay. And I think that's a really smart decision after not playing in any games yet and then coming back 3 touchdowns the
Mhm.
second half. He put up better stats than Mitchell Trubisky, like way
Mhm.
better.
Mhm.
I don't know. It seems like Nick Foles has better like field vision, like overall field
Mhm. I
vision.
agree
Because
with that.
when I was going back looking at Mitchell Trubisky, where he like could have thrown
Mhm.
somewhere and threw somewhere else, I'm like, why didn't he throw to this other guy? And then Nick
Yep.
Foles, he throws to the other guy. Like
Yep.
Allen Robinson, he was having a slow couple weeks, and he just
Yeah.
came back and played out of his mind.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Nick Foles, I feel like he could make the Bears really good.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
mean, you know what's confusing me is that you have the Vikings who are 0-3. And I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is it partly their schedule, or is it that they're not as good as they were, but is it
Mhm.
partly their schedule? Is it partly because of injury? I don't know what it is, but are the Bears going to be able to pull off those
Mhm.
wins? We'll see that later. But
Yeah.
for the Falcons, Matt Ryan had a game of like an average game of like 240 yards, and I mean he
Mhm.
only had one passing touchdown. Calvin Ridley was
Mhm.
doing most of the work there, receiving 110 of those yards.
Yeah. It hurt having Julio out that game. You can
Yeah,
tell their passing attack was
yeah,
nowhere near as good.
for sure. Yeah, because like outside of Calvin Ridley, the passing game was terrible. And
Mhm.
so I think like once the Bears defense kind of caught on to like how Calvin Ridley plays
Mhm.
and they started doubling up on Ridley, and then the Falcons had to turn to their running game. And
Mhm.
even then, like Todd Gurley only had a game of 80 rushing yards.
Mhm.
It was just a huge struggle for
Yeah.
the Falcons defense, which should be good, but it's not.
Mm. Yeah, I think with the Falcons, I honestly think that they kind of got, and I disagree with you a little bit on Gurley having a mediocre game because he averaged 6 yards a carry almost. I think it's just the Falcons monitoring his run total. They said he's only getting 15 to 20 carries a game, and we can see that. They gave Brian Hill 9, and he got himself 6.4 yards a carry and a touchdown. I think the Falcons are just trying to go with a more committee style of run. And even in the past couple weeks, even Ito Smith's gotten goal line carries. I think they're just balancing Gurley to just make sure he stays healthy. But with the passing game, the Falcons kind of got messed up because not only is Julio hurt, Russell Gage got injured, I think, with a concussion really early in the game. And he had started to be real rock at the number 3 position for Ryan. So now between Ridley and Hayden Hurst, you had Olamide Zaccheaus, and that's it. So they literally had a decimated passing attack. So I think it wasn't just the Falcons defense collapsing, which they obviously did, but they just couldn't get anything going with the passing game because they had 2 receivers.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, you know what? I mean, why you have Michael Thomas injured, you have Julio Jones injured, you have Devontae Adams injured. Who's going to be next? DeAndre
Crazy.
Hopkins?
I hope
Yeah.
not. Even the wide receivers, Cortland Sutton's out for the year. Even him, everybody.
Everyone. Yeah. And it's like all the best. It surprised me that Clyde Helaire-Edwards has not been. I mean, he is a beast, but he's been going through some nasty tackles, and we'll talk about him later. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Bears because it seems like once Nick Foles started playing, they played solid quarters.
Yeah.
But when he's not, which hopefully he is, but when he's not,
yeah, it's interesting. My friend said we needed Nick. I was talking to one of my friends who's a Bears fan. He said, look, we need Nick Foles to come from a backup position so he can become the greatest quarterback in the NFL, which is what he's always done. Backs up Carson Wentz, guess what happens? Throws 6 touchdowns in a game. Backs up Carson Wentz, guess what happens? Wins Super Bowl MVP. Starts with the Rams, not good. Starts with the Jaguars, not good. He has to be a backup for him to be really good for no reason.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I wonder if it's just coincidence or if it has something to do with him watching the plays more, Mitchell
Yeah.
Trubisky, and then watching Carson Wentz, seeing how he does things.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. Never thought about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it I don't know what it is about him that unlocks the super special Nick. I don't even know, but they're just great. They're just great. We got two more games, Cade. Which one do you want to take on next?
Well, let's leave the game of the week till the end. So let's
All
go
right.
to our Chiefs Ravens game.
All right, sounds good. So
Monday Night
Lamar
Football.
Jackson and the Ravens got decimated by
Yeah,
KC for the majority of that game. So why don't you go ahead and start
yeah.
whichever team you want to talk about. My internet's kind of whacking out, so I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so yeah, I'll start with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. He only had 97 passing yards, and that's terrible. Like, they could not get the passing game going whatsoever. You had J.K. Dobbins with 38 yards, and then Mark Andrews behind him with 22, and that was Marquise Brown with 13, and that was pretty much it. It was a disaster for the passing game with Lamar Jackson. So after a while, they realized it was a disaster. And so they started basically only running the ball. And it was just at that point, can we fool the Chiefs defense? Can we do enough trick plays to stay alive? And they could not. Lamar Jackson, yes, great. He ran for 83 yards, but it didn't do much when they weren't getting into the end zone. And they had to give it to Justin Tucker almost every time. And even after Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards had 39 rushing yards, and then Mark Ingram had 30 rushing yards. And so the whole offense was just terrible. And then going to their defense, they could not keep up with Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Hilaire-Edwards, and Travis Kelce, whoever, Tyreek Hill, everyone was productive. Everyone was open. In who before this game, I would have rated the number 2 defense, the Baltimore Ravens. Now I'll rate them way worse because it was pretty obvious. Yeah. You got any things to say on like the Chiefs or anything?
Yeah, before I get to the Chiefs, I will say the Ravens were just an all-out mess. There were two people who really stood out on the team. One, Sam Koch, their punter, averaged 49 yards a punt, which is incredible. So, I mean, kudos to him. Also, the only reason there's only 2 reasons this game was so close. 1, garbage time touchdown. 2, Devin Duvernay returning the first kickoff return for a touchdown this year. Take out those 2, the game is 34-6. Going into the fourth quarter, the offense had scored 6 points only on field goals. The Ravens were a mess. And personally, I would have stuck with the run game more. Gus Edwards averaged 9 yards a carry. Ingram averaged 4 yards a carry. And I don't know whether they were trying to open Lamar up, if they were just trying to get him going in the passing game first, because he's been very good recently. And I'm still trying to figure out, is it the Chiefs secondary that intimidated him? I don't know what it was, but the Ravens just could not get anything on that back line. Frank Clark bringing pressure. It was crazy. If I'm the Chiefs, though, it was really the passing game. And I think Colin Cowherd at the beginning of the year said Patrick Mahomes is the scariest quarterback in the NFL, is the best statement this year. He threw 4 touchdowns, almost 400 yards. He was accurate. He was just throwing dots all over the field because the run game wasn't great. Hilaire had a couple of holes, but he only averaged 3 yards a carry, 64 yards. Not his best game. But when it came to the passing game, Mahomes just killed it out there. He was hitting Kelce, Tyreek late game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield. Sammy Watkins got 7 catches and nailed Mecole on a deep ball to basically put the icing on the cake at that point.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are running like a well-oiled machine. It is scary to watch.
Yeah, and I would totally agree. It's like one of the most complete offense or at least wide receiving corpses in the NFL, like because
If not
you have
the
Travis
league.
Kelce, if not the, you have Travis Kelce, Hardman, Hill, Hilaire, Edwards, Sammy Watkins, and they're all catching above 60 yards. But what you said about the rushing game, like with Gus Edwards getting like 10 yards a carry and Mark Ingram getting about 4, I think the problem that they didn't want to run more was because I think the Chiefs defense was catching on so well. I think it was really, really catching on to, like, I mean, yeah, they were trying to get some trick plays in. They were trying to like make Lamar Jackson run when it looked like Gus was, but
but I mean, when Lamar throws 7 passing yards though in the first half, you gotta try something different. That's just my thing. It's like even if they were catching on, it was the only thing that was working.
Yeah. I think they were just kind of in a state of nothing to do. Let's just punt it.
Yeah.
Which is basically what happened. And Justin Tucker kicking field goals, but they could not get in the end zone.
Yeah. So do you think, Cademan, that this is going to be like a wake-up call for the Ravens because their past 2 games obliterated a weak Browns team and then destroyed a terrible Texans O-line? Is this a wake-up call for them? They get Washington next week, and you look at the Ravens last year, it took them a loss to the Cleveland Browns, and then something clicked, and they were on a tear the second half of the year. Do you think this is the switch that turns the Ravens on for the rest of the year?
Oh, it is hard to know because they have the easiest schedule in football.
True. That's true.
And so when you think about that, I mean, you're going to lose maybe to the Steelers, who they play later, maybe to the Colts. Who else would they lose?
Patriots, maybe to Cam.
Maybe the Cowboys. I mean, you play the Steelers twice, so that's possibly 2 losses. Since they have such an easy schedule, I don't know if they're going to wake up.
Interesting.
I don't know. I think it's going to be kind of – they look great against the Browns and Texans, and then they play the Chiefs and they stink, and then they play the Washington football team, and they're like, hey, we're doing great again, and then the Bengals, and then the Eagles, but then you play the Steelers, and I think they're just – and they don't get – I don't know if they're going to get better. I mean, sure, they're probably going to get better some, but I don't know if they're going to ever wake up.
Interesting.
It's gonna be, I think if they had a harder schedule, they'd get on top of it. They don't.
Yeah, true.
Easy schedule.
True. It does help with them that they got matched up with the AFC South this year, and then on top of that, you get to play the Bengals and Browns twice. So I mean, that's 4 easy wins. I think the Steelers games are going to be fun because those games always just perpetually end in a 20-17 score, and somebody wins because for some reason they never score more than 24 points in a Ravens-Steelers game. But it'll be interesting. The Chiefs get New England and Cam this week. Oh, yeah. What are you expecting from KC at home in Arrowhead this week?
I think the defense is going to be great because Cam Newton is not making – I mean, Julian Edelman's great, but outside of that, they're not making a ton of passing connections, and it's basically just been, let's see which way Cam can run the ball this time.
True.
And it's worked great so far, but I don't know against Yeah, what do you think, AJ? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is probably a big game the Patriots lose. Cam's looked great, and they were able to rack up points on the Seahawks, but we'll talk about them in a minute to finish us off. But I think their Chiefs defense better than Seattle. Chiefs offense probably also better than Seattle. The Chiefs are just in general the best team and the most complete team in the league. Even with the kicker, you've got arguably the best kicker in Harrison Butker.
Yeah,
I just think that and we watched the Chiefs just take away Lamar, who's the best running quarterback in the league. So I think that this is a Chiefs game, especially at home with fans in Arrowhead. I think the Ravens are going to take out a lot of anger on Washington, though.
I don't know. I think it's going to be a pretty nice game for the Chiefs just because I'm sure they're going to probably catch on to some of what Cam Newton and Bill Belichick scheme. And then after that, once you cover Julian Edelman, I think you're pretty much all set for a win. So,
yep. True. Well, let's finish off with our last game of the day. The Seattle Seahawks improved to 3-0. Russell Wilson continuing to look like, and he's making his MVP candidacy ballot right here. Threw for most touchdowns in the first 3 games of a season. He had 14. Led the Seahawks to a 38-31 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Cade, Dallas almost made a comeback. If you're the Cowboys, you're now 1-2. What are you thinking if you're Dallas? And I mean, you're a Packers fan, so you've seen Mike McCarthy before, so you can get in his head.
I mean, I love Mike, but I don't know if he's like, I don't really want to use this term, but like up to date with all the like new offensive schemes and everything. Because the offense these days is just so creative. It's hard for most any defense to keep up with it the whole game, which is, I think, partly why we're seeing such high scoring games. Because your head coaches are so creative with their offense. But if I'm the Cowboys, I mean, you just got to get Zeke going because Zeke was struggling. He had 34 rushing yards and 24 receiving yards. But, I mean, it wasn't just Zeke. The running game for the Cowboys as a whole was not there. It was not there. But, I mean, besides that, the rest of the offense was looking pretty good with Michael Gallup getting 130 yards and a touchdown. Cedric Wilson had a great game, his first really big game with 107 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then, I mean, after that, you see Dak Prescott distributing the ball among Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, you name it. But I don't know what it was that they could not take over against the Seattle defense. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think, AJ?
Well, with Dallas, they're such an enigma to me. They've had injuries on defense. Leighton Vander Esch is gone. So, I mean, they're obviously really going to be struggling there. But, I mean, your 3 weeks, you've gotten basically destroyed by the Rams. We're able to overcome the Falcons because they're the Falcons. And then you head to Seattle and lose. If you're Dallas playing in the worst division in the NFL, where the current best team is the 1-2 Washington football team, come on, Dallas. I don't know what it is with them. I mean, even Zeke, he was restrained pretty well. He only rushed 2.4 yards a carry against Seattle. So credit to them for that.
Yeah. And, I was just looking over some, and it looks like you had Greg the Leg kicking 2 field goals. And then you have 3 punts by Chris Jones. So they were not I think at least from watching that game, now seeing what happened based off stats, I think that the Dallas Cowboys either had the offensive drive of let's go all the way, which happened a few times, and then the rest of the time it was let's go nowhere or let's go halfway so we can get our kicker to kick a field goal. And when you're defense isn't doing anything, like normally 31 points could win you a game depending on who you're playing, but when your defense lets up 38, it's not good. Then I think you have to do something with your defense. Mike McCarthy, you got to do something.
Man, it's a rough time in Dallas, but hey, if you're a Seattle fan, you're starting the season off 3-0. And Russell Wilson is looking like an MVP frontrunner. I mean, now granted, it's probably going to hurt having Chris Carson out. And if you've seen the play, that was the stupidest tackle I think I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen some boneheaded ones from Vontaze Burfict, to be fair. But those are just mean. That one was just stupid. But it's not like they were running the ball that much anyway, because Russell Wilson is throwing 40 passes a game. He is lighting it up. He's distributing it so well. I think he hit 10 different people on the day. Lockett got 3 touchdowns. Seattle's looking like arguably like Seattle, the Chiefs, the Packers. These guys are looking like the best teams in the league. They're able to just rack up points on a dime. The Seahawks haven't scored 30. They've scored 35 points plus in 3 straight games. They're quick. They're efficient. They're smart. Pete Carroll's letting Russell Wilson loose. He's throwing 40 times a game, and it's honestly really fun to watch. And I know you and we both love Russell Wilson. He's one of your favorites. Yeah, and it's fun to watch him play. Granted, DK Metcalf, I know a lot of people are going to give you hate on this, but you kind of should have ran a little bit faster when that ball got punched out of the back of the end zone. Anyway, Seahawks had a great game. I'm a little bit worried about their defense, to be fair. I'm a little bit concerned. They've gradually kind of been not as good continually over the past 4 years. But, I mean, the Seahawks get Miami and then Minnesota in their next 2 games. So, go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything you want to add to that about Seattle?
I think the thing with their defense was normally you see Bobby Wagner putting more pressure on the quarterback or at least someone. And it didn't seem like it happened. It seemed like he was putting only pressure on Ezekiel Elliott, which ended up working great, and they won the game. But I think once you start playing even the Vikings, who have Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook, and I think you have to play better. I don't know. I think you have to put more pressure on Kirk Cousins.
Interesting.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Interesting. Yeah. That's gonna be that's our last matchup. Unless you got anything else to say about that.
I mean, one other fun fact is last time the Seahawks went 3-0, they won the Super Bowl, or at least they went to the Super Bowl.
Wow!
Can't remember which one. One of those. They either went or won. I know they went for sure, but it's looking really good for Russell.
Yeah, for sure. So. Those are our 4 games that we decided to highlight. Cademan, there is one last question I want to give you before we head out. We have had just a bevy of incredible performances from a whole bunch of players over the first 3 games. So we're just going to finish off with this. Who is your MVP frontrunner right now? Russell Wilson, 14 touchdowns in 3 games. Aaron Rodgers has only been sacked twice, 9 touchdowns and 0 picks in 3 games. Patrick Mahomes, now the fastest player to 10,000 yards in NFL history. Josh Allen playing out of his mind. There's a whole bunch of guys who are just putting up crazy type stats. But currently, who's your MVP frontrunner?
Oh, it is so hard to know. And I mean, looking at the stats, you could even have Dak Prescott up there.
True.
He has close to 1,200 passing yards already.
Oh, gosh.
Russell Wilson,
Mike McCarthy, give the man a break.
I mean, with Russell Wilson throwing 14 touchdowns, and the closest one behind him is Josh Allen with 10, and then Patrick with 9, and then Aaron Rodgers with 9. All those guys you said. So hard to know.
It's tough
because what are the things you base your MVP off? Your touchdowns, your yards,
your team record,
your QBR, your team record. There's so many things, and I think each one of those quarterbacks up there, like Patrick Mahomes is all around amazing right now. He's crazy. Aaron Rodgers seems to be doing the same, and Russell Wilson. I think the one I would eliminate from there is Josh Allen. I think the other 3 are right up there.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, despite the fact that Josh Allen has put up in, I think, back-to-back games 4 touchdown performances, he's the one you drop out?
I do, because in each of the stats, let me make sure I'm getting this right, but passing yards, Dak is better than you. Passing touchdowns, Russell is better. Let's see, what else would there be? Receptions. What other stat should we go
QBR.
off of? QBR. Tons of quarterbacks are better right there. And so even though he's one of the all-around best QBs, like at least from his stats right now, I feel like you have like Russell, who's doing way better in the passing touchdowns, playing out of his mind there. Those are MVP stats right there. Aaron Rodgers.
You good? You all right there?
Woo! Okay, I don't know what that was, but
okay.
Aaron Rodgers, putting up crazy yards and touchdowns, both of those. And then Patrick Mahomes just playing out of his mind all the time. He is one of the most productive, if not the most productive, quarterback with the ball. He has such amazing, like, cool throws. You know, like he did an underhand pass. He did an amazing sidearm pass. He did like an over-the-shoulder type thing. I'm like, ooh. So, I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I don't see Josh Allen getting the MVP.
Okay, yeah. I think it's really interesting looking at the four of them. Rodgers, obviously one of the best field managers out of these guys. Mahomes is like an amalgamation of Brett Favre, Matthew Stafford, Michael Vick, and Tom Brady, all wrapped up into one guy. This is the reason he got signed for 10 years. Russell Wilson is kind of carrying his entire offense right now. So, I mean, in terms of like MVP or whatever, I mean, if you're going by stats and performance right now, it'd probably go to Russell just because he's kind of his entire offense. Even Chris Carson, most of his touchdowns are receiving touchdowns. But after that, Rodgers and Mahomes are like this. They're so close. Both of them, great stats, great performances, also have a great running game with Jones and Edwards-Helaire. And then, I mean, Allen's definitely had the softest matchups out of the three. I mean, he's had Miami and the Jets to start, so we'll see more of him later in the year. But I think these four personally are probably the closest to MVP performances that we're seeing just from early in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, even though I think he has almost no chance at MVP, his stats kind of say he do. Matt Ryan, whose passing yards are great, like really, really, really good. He's close to 1,000, and he still has those 7 touchdowns even without Julio. So I don't know. I think he'd have to like make his offense look better in order for him to get MVP. But I think he is still up there, and I put him as my number 5.
Nice. Very nice. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to wrap us up. Kate, you got anything else you really want to mention about the NFL?
All good here.
All right. Well, we're going to have some very exciting matchups in the upcoming week. Really quick, we'll give you all a couple game updates. The Connecticut Sun currently up by 2 on the Aces, 59-57 in the fourth quarter. In terms of the MLB, the AL wildcard already started this week. The Astros won 4-1 on the Twins. White Sox, let's go. Lucas Giolito pitches a perfect game for 6 innings. 4-1 win over the A's. Rays overcome Guerrero Jr. and win 3-1 over the Blue Jays. And the Yankees currently racking up the runs on Shane Bieber's Indians. They're up 7-2. And ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty much going to wrap us up. Cademan,
that will.
How about, as usual, you give us our bag?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Psalm 9:1, verse of the week. I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds.
There you go. Well, let's pull out your Dwayne Wade card. Let's finish this up. This has been a long episode.
All right, here we go.
So let's go ahead and finish up.
It has been. Hold on. Let me get it so where there's no glare.
Very nice.
Can't get it
I like the jersey in that one.
It is a cool-looking jersey.
That's a nice one.
A cool-looking card. Supreme Court. So
nice. Whatever that
Jay, what you got for us today?
I'm gonna go ahead and grab this Orange Bears Riddell Color Rush helmet right here. I like the Color Rush jerseys and the helmets, and just seeing it's like I love. Don't get me wrong. Navy and blue, beautiful combination. But this, all the all orange. I'm really into throwback helmets and jerseys. Hint, hint, hint. But I'm very, very. There's my Bears helmet. That's a newer one right there. That's a newer one.
Okay.
The background,
I
should say. It's newer to the background. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Nice.
ladies and gentlemen, that's everything. Hopefully, we'll be back later this week. We're also going to have an Allied Shorts, hopefully, this week. I dropped a hint like 5 minutes ago on what the topic is. Cademan, of course, hosts.
You did?
For us. Yeah, I did. Hopefully, we'll see you there. Hopefully, you enjoyed this last week of the NFL. Be sure to comment, let us know what players, games, etc. you will want us to talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is AJ Herschel, and y'all already know that I'm here with my man. I'm pointing the wrong way. Cademan Bauer. We will see you guys next time. Have a great week, everybody. Also, I beat Cademan this week in fantasy again. That was fun.